All right, let's switch gears to the Bengals here. Obviously, they had their first preseason game. Scores don't matter and things like that, so we're not even going to talk about it. But the big news since that game has been Amarius Mims, the rookie right tackle, is out with a strained pec now and is going to miss several weeks. Skinny, how big of a setback is this for Mims, and how big of a setback is this for the Bengals?
It's huge for him, and that's the part. I mean, you were shaping up to have just an important 2-week period starting with that game on Saturday, because you got the joint practice today in Chicago as we're doing this podcast, and the game in Chicago. He would have gotten first team reps in Chicago. He probably would have given some of those to Trent Brown anyway. They probably would have worked him in a little bit with the first team in the joint practice, but then he would have probably been given reps in the game because even though the second teamers are the ones that are going to play, second and beyond, first teamers aren't going to play. Then a joint practice with the Colts, where again he would have gotten some first team reps, and just the extra practice reps that he would have gotten. The other part, Rick, is, and again, the joke was made of what does several weeks mean, and Zach Taylor said, according to Webster's, it's more than 2, less than many. Let me just give you an arbitrary, let's just say it's 4 weeks before it heals itself up, right? Well, with the pec, that's probably also 4 weeks that you can't do anything from a weight training perspective, or maybe a little bit of conditioning, but probably not as much as you would normally do. Certainly not football shape conditioning. And then you're into the season already at that point. And so does he make up ground then? Did they think enough of him to say, okay, as soon as he's healthy, we're plugging him back in? The part for it is a big deal, but it's also not, because you do have a guy with 93 starts under his belt replacing him. You don't have a cast-off 5th-round guy who you've tried before, or a bum 2nd-round guy, hint, Jackson Carman, who you've tried before. You're putting a legitimate NFL player out there. Now, what he's got left in the tank, I don't know. He may have thought, hey, I let this kid play. I'll cash a check, and if they need me, they need me, but the hell with that. But I do think it does give you at least a viable option at that position with Trent Brown.
It was working out so perfectly for the Bengals with Mims and Brown, because Mims really hit the ground running. He was exceeding expectations and looking like the starter. And it's like, okay, perfect. Trent Brown may end up being the guy we need to rely on throughout the course of this year, especially as it gets later into the year. But as long as Mims is the front runner and Brown is kind of need to work himself back into shape, it's easy to let him play, learn, get experience. And then if he falters a little bit, it's like, okay, you're still learning, you're young. Let's put the veteran in ahead of you. Now, when you put Brown out there as the starter, assuming everything goes fine, let's say the Bengals win the first 2 games while Mims is unavailable, and Brown looks like he's playing fine, it's kind of hard to put the rookie in front of the veteran guy for no reason without running the risk of, well, Brown might just kind of cash it in and be like, I'm done for the year if you're going to screw me like this, right?
Yeah, but at the same point in time, it does allow you then to work Mims back in at your pace, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm just going to throw him back in. I do think, to your point, I think he was trending towards being the opening day starter. Now that he's not. The other part, too, is, and listen, in a perfect world, if this year worked out where Trent Brown started training camp and was the first string right tackle, and Mims worked his way in, looked good, and you felt positive, and Trent Brown was going to start. Trent Brown was not starting 17. He's not going to start 17 games this year. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Something will happen physically where he's not going to start 17 games.
I guess my only concern there, or my bigger concern there, is that Mims might actually be better. He might actually be the stud, and now we might have to wait to see him on the field and get his opportunity fully. And even if he does, he's just getting set back with all of this, right? I mean, the opportunity, not having the opportunity to be in these joint practices, having a potential setback from a conditioning or strength perspective with the weight. No one's worried about his strength. I understand that, but just not lifting weights, not being as sharp as he normally would be.
It's possibly a month without doing that stuff. That's a big deal in my opinion.
Right. I mean, I know he's a massive human being. Like he'll be fine. But again, all those things you need to be at your sharpest if you're trying to be a rookie playing week 1 in the NFL or playing it all in the NFL. Setting him back like this, you just feel like it could really become not a lost season for him, but a season in which it was looking so promising early, and now it's like it may never really get off the ground for him fully here.
Yeah, and that's the wholly disappointing part to this. I mean, the reviews he got, I talked to Frank Pollock a week before last. I might even brought this up on the podcast. And usually when you talk to coaches about rookies, you get there's ups and downs, and he's learning. I mean, Frank Pollock gushed about the guy, and that to me spoke volumes. I mean, Joe Burrow talked about him as in terms of, oh, he's an A+. And all the veterans have loved his work ethic and all the things. I mean, he's got all the physical traits, right? You see that. The knock was inexperience, and could he do it, and hit the – I mean, he did everything you could have wanted. Honestly, I think and more, to be quite frank.
Quite frankly, it was shocking to hear the reports about him coming out when he first showed up. I mean, everything has been pretty glowing. And for a giant guy like that who's trying to step in, learn everything, you just expect there's going to be some learning. He's going to be slow. Like he's not going to look the part right away. And that just wasn't the case. I've got a couple little takeaways from here that I want to get your opinion on. Should we be worried about Mims' ability to stay healthy? That was a thing when they drafted him. Now he's already hurt. Is that a concern?
I guess it's a fair point. Sure. I mean, this injury was weird because after the game, a group of us talked to him and he didn't seem to indicate anything. He was happy, smiling, talking about, getting the extra reps with the twos and saying, when they want to throw me out there, I'll take the reps and go and, love to play the game. And then when Zach Taylor started his press conference Monday with a statement and he started to speak, I thought he was literally going to talk about Dejon Anthony's busted nose because he busted his nose pretty good. And as soon as he said Mims, I'm like, oh crap, I got to whip my phone out and tweet this because I don't tweet a lot of stuff from press conferences. But I'm like, I was floored just because, again, we just talked to him on that Saturday and he indicated nothing. Apparently, I guess he told the coaching staff, something didn't feel right. And they went and took a picture of it and voila, he strained his pec. And so, yeah, to your point, sure. I mean, until guys with that kind of a tag, you certainly have to worry about that. No doubt.
All right. This is my other thing. And I don't necessarily feel strongly about this, but it's something that I've been thinking about as I've listened to the fallout and the coverage of this over the last few days. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I think people, especially media types around here, have gotten way too high on Mims and way too low on Brown based on almost zero evidence. Like Trent Brown has already shown us that he can do this in the NFL and at some points even play at a really high level. Amarius Mims has shown us nothing, really hardly anything even at the college level, certainly nothing at the NFL level outside of a few preseason snaps last week that looked good. And yet people are like, oh, this could be a big loss for the Bengals, that like Amarius Mims was clearly better than Trent Brown. Like, I don't think we know that's the case at all.
No, and I wouldn't go to that extent either, Rick. I'm with you on that. Again, Mims looked great. Small sample size in practice settings. That's where, and I thought he looked good the other night. I know he didn't get a great PFF grade. In fact, he barely graded ahead of Jackson Carman, which that always makes me question PFF more and more and more. But again, it's a number. It's something to work off of. I didn't think it passed the eyeball test for me. I saw, I think they said he allowed 2 pressures. I saw another site that said he allowed none. I don't rate those things. I can't judge that kind of stuff. So it looked good to the eyeball test to me. But again, these joint practices, I think, would have separate to see him go against ones. How did it look? How did Trent Brown look? Let's let them go, maybe alternate 3 or 4 plays a piece, and let's see them go against the first team edge rushers of these teams. See how they do. I think that would have given you a better test. But I think the thing that made everybody gush is with offensive linemen, you usually don't know. And then they put the pads on for the first time. And so, oh my gosh, that guy's just eating him alive. And what's it going to look like? That wasn't the case here. I think that's why everybody gushed about it.
There are like 12 hours of Bengals offensive line content out there from the last 2 days of
thank you
Bengals coverage. So if you want more on the full depths of offensive line play and Jackson Carman, everything, go listen to any of that, including
grind the tape because they're coaches. They know. You don't know a damn thing, man.
Well, and you guys are even doing the quick recaps after each day of training camp. If you want to find more talk about that, you can go back there. I'm not going to rehab. I mean, Jackson Carman we haven't talked about him hardly at all in this training camp for a reason. He's a lost cause at this point that they're just going to have to walk away from.
That was brutal.
He can't play.
Brutal.
Skinny, what did you make of Jamar Chase not showing up for practice on Tuesday, but then traveling with the team to Chicago on Wednesday?
I make this. So here's the thing. Players who have unexcused absences from training camp practices that are in their rookie contract, which he is, are subject to $40,000 a day fines. So in theory, and we don't know if Tuesday was excused or unexcused, we just know he wasn't there. And what was told to us by Zach Taylor is the situation is day to day. And he took no follow-up questions because that would have been one of them was this excused or was this unexcused? It's quite possible. And again, I'm only surmising here. Hell, by the time this podcast is posted, he may sign an extension for all I know. I don't think that's the case. I don't believe it's trending in that direction, but none of us know. Neither side has talked. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. So anyway, so I think the part of him going to Chicago was maybe him catching wind of, oh crap, 40 grand, really? I mean, all I have to do is be there and I won't get fined. Yeah, you know what? I'll hop on the plane and I'll be there. That's what I think.
So the fact that he didn't come on Tuesday, is that a sign that this is either turning more negative or that he's at least trying to put more pressure on the Bengals here?
Well, I think both. I think that he is trying to put more pressure on the Bengals of, see, I'm willing to leave. And if you guys don't think, I brought this up a while back, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. If he's willing to do some of this stuff, I got a feeling he's willing to miss games. I mean, what other pressure can he put on them? The first part of pressure was not going to practice. Second part of pressure is I'm gone. Now the third part of pressure would be I ain't going to play in games.
I heard Trey Wingo actually on Chatterbox Sports yesterday, the day before, and he was saying that, he had a really negative tone to this when he said, every time I ask about this, it feels like something is off. It feels like something's not right there with Jamar Chase and the Bengals. And he thinks, the fact that the Bengals are playing around with this and haven't been able to sign him to a long-term extension at this point is really concerning, and that there could be a divorce between these two parties at some point down the line because of this. Are you getting any more vibes of that nature, that this thing is growing more hostile or negative?
I don't know about the hostile part of it, because I do think Zach is caught in the middle of this. So I don't think it's hostile from his perspective. I don't think the Bengals management feels like it's hostile. It's, here's the number we're at right now. Come closer to our number. We'll come closer to your number. And neither side's willing to budge at the moment. And again, man, don't play poker with Mike Brown. He ain't going to blink, guys. He's just not going to blink, especially when, and I've said this before, fans may think there is, but they're literally, based on the contractual situation, there is no sense of urgency to get this done. And I'll be honest with you, I've said this. I know it's unpopular. I've been clapped back at this. I'm not overpaying for wide receivers. There's too many great ones in the league. I saw a piece, I don't know if it was ESPN or somewhere, and it said, maybe the middle of the pack of quarterbacks is a Jared Goff. Middle pack of wide receivers is 1,200-yard Amari Cooper. I mean, T. Higgins probably isn't even in the top 20 or top 25, and T. Higgins is really good, right? I think we'd agree with that. And if you look at fantasy ratings, and that's not all of it, but honestly, if you were to list the wide, I'm not sure T gets to the top 25. You can argue with that. It's subjective. Certainly not top 20 and not top. That tells you how good wide receivers are. And are you really going to lock up? Again, I think they want to lock it up on their terms. And if not, then yeah, you're heading towards an ugly divorce. And I know everyone got to sign him. He's a great player. I'm not telling you he's not. But I just think there's too many good wide receivers. There's going to be another probably 15 that come out next year. I mean, Jamar Chase hit the ground running as a rookie. Justin Jefferson hit the ground running as a rookie. Those guys are out there, Rick.
No, that's true. On this note, we got our first ever voice question, actually audio submitted. It wasn't in text form, and I wasn't exactly sure, so I'm going to hold my phone up to the microphone. This is from our former colleague, Jed Demusi, who it was an Ask Any Anything question specifically about the Jamar Chase contract situation. So a little bit confusing question here, so listen in closely.
So the Bengals don't like doing guarantees beyond the first year, right? The only person they've ever done it for was for Burrow, but they're already on the hook for $21 million. They've already picked up Chase's option next year. So why don't they sign him to a 4-year, 3-year deal worth whatever his option is next year? Will he take that? He'll take $21 million, and they can guarantee it the second year, which is already guaranteed anyway. Like they need to kind of get this done now so they can pretend that they're okay with guaranteeing beyond the first year. And this would be a perfect way to do it. Okay, bye.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. He sounds a lot like Paul Dehner. I didn't realize Jed sounded like a lot like Paul Dehner.
That would be hilarious if Paul Dehner was calling in with Bengals questions
yeah.
for our podcast. That would be
exactly.
fascinating.
Yes. So I don't think what he's saying is too far-fetched. I think the thing is, you're on the hook for only $1 million this year if you're the Bengals. Okay. The thing that with guaranteed contracts that people have to understand is this. So let's just say, and this doesn't come into fruition for next. Let's just say you guarantee $90 million to Jamar Chase, right? You have to put that money in an escrow account. You know what you don't have to do if you're Mike Brown right now? You don't have to pull that money out of your account. You get the interest off that. You want to put it in escrow now? That's part of this when you don't have to. And you can argue that's cheap, that's wrong, Man, that's business. That's just pure business is what that is. And, we don't know what the talks have been. Does Jamar want 3 years after next year on top of this? Are they willing to does he want 4? Does he only want a couple that, hey, let's do the negotiation now and you only have me under control through 2027? And the Bengals are going, no, we got you under control now for 25. If we do a 3-year extension, we got you under control from 20 through 28 and maybe even 29. So I think there's so much machinations in there. You're just at a complete impasse at the moment. And a lot of it has to do with the guaranteed money that they're not going to take out of their account and put in escrow when they had to do that for Joe Dan Burrow.
I think so. What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I'm hearing like Jed seems to think that the issue is the Bengals don't want to give Chase a contract with multiple years of guaranteed money.
Yes, correct.
Meanwhile, the bigger issue between both of these parties is exactly what Jed is suggesting here, which is that they start the extension now. In other words, the Bengals don't have to give him $21 million for this year, but if they sign the extension right now, then it will go from $1 million base salary to 21 base salary. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying again, he wants guaranteed money right now.
Correct.
They're not because they're not giving him that money right now, in my opinion. They're not taking $90 million out of their bank account that's drawing interest and putting into an escrow account that goes to Jamar Chase. They're not going to do it because you know why? He's under contract for this year. He's under contract for next. He doesn't have to like it. Fans don't have to like it. You and I've talked about it. It is what it is.
But in other words, is the hang up the amount of money that they have to guarantee long-term, regardless of when it is, or is the hang up that, hey, we don't have to do this right now.
I think
we get to wait a year before we do this. And that's the whole issue that's holding this up is Jamar wants it right now. And they're like, yes, no, you get it in a year. We will do this for you, but you get it in a year. We don't have to do it this year.
I think that's what it is. And I get in theory why he doesn't like it. But I mean, again, I go back to this, go to your union and tell them to get a better collective bargaining agreement because that's where it is right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right. We've talked about the Jamar Chase contract thing every week, so I'm sure we probably don't need to go any farther into that. With how good Burrow and the offense looked in that one drive last week against the Bucs, are they done, or at least is Burrow done for the preseason now?
I think so, because I think unless he and the offense are a disaster today, going against the Bears ones and maybe a disaster next week. Yeah, I mean, it's already trending in the direction of the ones not playing this week. And then do you really risk it in the finale? I mean, you really don't. So I think to your point, I think the ones are done.
One other thing that came out of the Buccaneers game was Jermaine Burton. He opened some eyes at the end of the game against the Bucs with 3 catches for 82 yards and a touchdown. Are people reading too much into that performance there?
Yes. Listen, it's good to see. I mean, it showed you this. Dude can run, and he can run past bad corners. I mean, that again, that's good to see. And he made some plays when he was given an opportunity. But there was also a message being sent of why he had played 5 snaps until the fourth quarter. And what Joe Burrow said after the game of, you got a lot of talent, got to get in the playbook, got to keep working. I mean, that to me tells you where things are at.
That really stood out to me. Yeah, the quote from Burrow was he made some really good plays there at the end. He just needs to keep working hard, getting in his playbook, and continue to build and grow as a player and as a person. His future is bright, and he just needs to keep working hard. I think, everyone's come out here like, oh, they've got to play him with the first stringers. We got to see what he looks like in that third receiver role. To me, I came away with the exact opposite opinion of this. It's like they didn't play him till this late. Yes, he had 3 catches, including a touchdown. But like you said, the coverage was embarrassing. We saw that he could make a contested catch on the one, I guess. That was a nice play. But
very nice play.
It wasn't like he was getting huge separation from these guys by running super crisp routes and then the ball was on a dime. He had to contort his body and make some catch. It was like he was playing against a dude who had no business being out there against him, and he was able to haul in some easy Okay, the one was kind of contested, but for the most part, they were easy plays for him to make. Do you feel like we need to see him get more meaningful reps, or did Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor kind of tell us all we need to know about him right now?
Yes, on both accounts. I mean, I do think you need to see what he can do if he's thrown into a first string or at least second string situation. But at the same time, again, a lot of this is, does Joe trust you? And right now, it doesn't sound like he completely does if he's out there with him. Listen, the one thing I think they've done a favor that he was trying to work all the receiver spots, including slot. And from what I understand, the slot situation, he was struggling with it. So they decided to take that off his plate, and maybe that'll help. And maybe that was part of the issue, is so much was being thrown at him and he just couldn't grasp it all. And the nuances of slot we've talked about are not easy. Tyler Boyd made it look easy. But it's not easy, especially for a rookie. Charlie Jones ran into that last year a little bit, although, he had Tyler Boyd ahead of him, but he ran into that a little bit. So I think taking that off his plate will help too. It did show what you thought of him athletically, that dude can run, dude can catch. He's caught the ball in camp. It's not like suddenly, this kid's had drop issues. I think it's exactly the Joe Burrow point of know the playbook a little bit better, keep working hard, got a bright future because you're really good, and I can make you look good. We can make each other look good. So get to that point, kid.
Yeah, well, your multiple people reference needs to stay in the playbook and work hard after a performance like that. It's pretty clear that he has screwed up some things in practices in terms of knowing where he's supposed to be. Finally, Skinny, the Bengals are participating in a joint practice with the Bears on Thursday, and then they have the preseason game on Saturday at 1 p.m. Have they ever played a 1 p.m. Saturday preseason game before, or am I misremembering? I'm
sure back in the day, but it feels like most of their games have been at night. I mean, for me, who has to write off the game or just a running game, or it's much more pleasurable to sit there at 1 o'clock on a Saturday writing something out and hitting the keyboard about 4:15 and going bye-bye story, as opposed to working a night game and hitting that button at 12 o'clock and then the work just begins. So yeah, the 1 o'clock game is nice.
Quickly, I know we did this a little bit more extended for the first game, but is there anything that really jumps out to you to watch from a fan's perspective in this second one?
Yeah, it's probably mostly the young guys and the guys battling for backup spots. Again, I think these joint practices will go a long way to determine some of this. Like, is Dax Hill run with the ones the whole time? And as he moved past DJ Turner, and DJ got nicked up a little bit in practice on, what day was that, Tuesday. I don't think it's anything serious, but he did get nicked up a little bit. And, Dax, I thought, had a pretty good game in game one, had 3 pass breakups, didn't get his head around on a ball, but he was in position to make the play. I think Josh Newton's opened some eyes. I don't think he's going to start day one, and he may not start at all this year, but I talked to Lou Anarumo on Tuesday, and, I said, I asked him first about his opinion of Josh, and, he came up with the interception, and he said nice things. He's had a good camp. Got a takeaway for us. That's always a good thing. And I said, yeah, but you've always been, you haven't liked rookie cornerbacks and playing them right away. I said, I know you got thrown. Cam had to get thrown in the mix, and then DJ last year. And he did say, he said, listen, I prefer it to be an older guy, but if the younger guy's better, he's going to play. And maybe that changes his tune a little bit. So yeah, the cornerback guys, my guy, and I'm doing a 53-man roster today. I did one to start camp. I'll do one today. I'll do one after the preseason finale. I'm leaning towards putting a guy I did a story on back in OTAs. Muma Jongmeta is his name, the linebacker number 45, if you saw him. He had 10 tackles. And I asked Lou, I said, hey, the 10 tackles are a nice sign, I guess. I mean, but, you grade things differently. What'd you think? And he said, thought he played a great game. He said, he ran the ship a little bit in there too, which was good to see. And he was running with the second team the other day in practice. And I think they're looking for that fifth linebacker. It's, Joe Bocci and Akeem Davis-Gaither are probably the 2 backups to Pratt and Wilson. That fifth linebacker spot's kind of wide open for somebody. And I think Jongmeta took a big step forward towards maybe making the roster. I didn't have him on my initial 53. I think I'm going to have him on my 53 today.
All right, there you go. So that's what to watch for the 1 o'clock Saturday preseason game in Chicago against the Bears. We'll keep an eye out for that.
Sure, you can stop watching, but let's be honest, you want to know more. Tap the links, or even better, click subscribe to stay in the know.